There are new developments in the Alex Murdaugh case. We're learning a former juror that was involved in the 2023 murder trial is in favor of the release of evidence of jury tampering. This evidence is what pushed the South Carolina Supreme Court to overturn Murdaugh's murder conviction earlier this year. Alex Murdaugh had been found guilty of the murders of his wife Maggie and son Paul in March of 2023. In a filing in Colleton County General Sessions dated July 27th, juror Myra Crosby says she believes the public is entitled to access the investigative efforts of the state relating to their investigation into former Colleton County Clerk of Court Becky Hill. Hill was charged with obstruction of justice, perjury, and misconduct in office. A tentative retrial date has been set for April of next year.